heels in love again with you. I'll never say never kiss you again, 'cause here I'm kissing you again. That's just the thing I said I'd never do. I walked away and said goodbye. I was hasty, wasn't I? I missed you so I thought I'd die, but it's all over now, throw my hat in the sky. I'll never say never again, 'cause here I am in love again. Head over heels in love again with the same sweet hue. Again, 'cause here I am in love again. Head over heels in love again with you. I'll never say never kiss you again, 'cause here I'm kissing you again. That's just the thing I said I'd never do. I walked away and said goodbye. I was hasty, wasn't I? I missed you so I thought I'd die, but it's all over now, throw my hat in the sky. I'll never say never again, 'cause here I am in love again. Head over heels in love again with the same sweet hue.
Alright, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in the world. I am Delphine and today I am with AJ Wade, a singer, guitar and banjo player and shag dancer. So welcome, AJ.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us in this live broadcast. And so what I've heard is that you are currently a professional musician in London. How did you originally get started in the music world? How was your career inspired?
Yeah, this is going way back. So it goes back to I started playing guitar when I was about 10 or 11 years old, and that was in Oxford, which is my hometown. So I started learning classical as well as other forms of guitar, but I was kind of classically trained. That was my beginnings. And I played in school bands throughout my teenage years. Interestingly, one of my classmates was John Greenwood from Radiohead. In fact, yeah, this is in Abingdon. It's a town near Oxford. In fact, the whole band was at my school, but the rest of them were a couple of years older than me. But I did play with Johnny on a few occasions. He was very inspiring, very talented. He played violin and keyboards and drums. He was a real multi-instrumentalist, and he taught me a few things, so that was really cool. And his older brother, Colin, was the bass player. He was always very encouraging of anyone sort of putting a band together and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's kind of what I did through school. And then after school, I left Oxford and moved to London. It was a very fertile time for music then. You know, it was the 90s. I'm going to maybe show my age a little here, but it was the 90s, and there was good stuff going on. Very inspiring. And you know, I was playing in a couple of bands, and you know, we had a few sort of near misses, sort of those sort of almost had a good deal kind of thing, but didn't happen. And eventually, that kind of folded, and I got together with a singer and songwriter together to make a kind of writing partnership. And she had grown up in Nashville, although she's English. And through that, we managed to score a publishing deal with EMI Publishing here and with Curb Records out of Nashville. And so basically I, for the most part, relocated to Nashville and was on the label there, and traveling a lot. They had us traveling all over the States. So I saw a lot of America and learned a lot, especially about American music and American approach to music and jazz and American folk and rock and everything that they have there that tends to be quite sort of put together, especially in Nashville, which is a real bringing together of all sorts of music. It's way more than just country music there. But so that was really cool, and I learned a lot doing that. But eventually I wanted to be back home eventually and not just traveling around America, which sounds incredibly glamorous and was, but at the same time sometimes you miss home. And so eventually I came back and was playing session guitar for various bands and people, and one of those at a gig led me to I was asked to join like a project which was being put together by a singer called Steve Parsons. And this was together, they wanted another guitar player because they wanted like a 2-guitar kind of blues rock kind of thing. And that was together with myself, him, Glenn Matlock from the Sex Pistols, Martin Chambers from the Pretenders, and another guitar player called Chris Spedding, who's an amazing session player who's played with just absolutely everybody. And then we did one album on SPV Records, which is a German label. I did notice how the number of zeros at the advance check kind of went down by this time. It's very different to the 90s. And after doing that for a while, I kind of just wanted my own band. In order to do that, I knew I had to sing and not just play guitar for other people. And there's an old saying where they say that it's a long, long way from the side of the stage to the centre, and it truly is. But it meant I could have my own band playing the kind of music that I liked here in London. So that's kind of the story of how I got here.
Yeah, inspiring story, and it's great to hear that you were able to then create your own band and to segue into that. So it's this particular kind of a genre. It's this 30s, 40s jazz, but with a country flair. So I'm sure the inspiration that you've came from in Nashville and throughout the States has also inspired that. This fusion style, how was your band born? What drew you to this kind of unique and niche genre?
Well, as you say, we play classic Western swing, which is just swing music from 30s Texas. It's not heard around that much anymore. And when I first heard it, I just thought, wow, this is everything I love about music, all in one thing. It's got the swing, it's got the jazz, it's got the sort of country passion and soaring fiddles, it's got the brass, just everything. But it's kind of got buried a little bit over time, which is strange because in its heyday of the 30s and 40s, it was hugely popular, particularly in Oklahoma and Texas and Oklahoma and the West Coast, but also nationwide. And that was something I learned in America, how much Western culture is kind of just part of American culture in general. And you had like Bing Crosby singing Western songs with the Andrews Sisters, and as well as people like Bob Wills, one of the key Western swing guys in Hollywood movies, and thousands of people going to dances on Santa Monica Pier or back in Texas, even in the early 30s when they started off. So I just wanted to bring back some of that music that maybe kind of got forgotten sometimes, and I wanted to play the early Western swing sound, like the early 30s sound, kind of the beginnings of it. I wanted to get a band together that would achieve that kind of sound, particularly that sort of Milton Brown, who was one of the instigators. People call him the father of Western swing because he was one of the first people to really sort of bring the jazz to that typical string band sound. And in particular, he would not only brought that way of playing, but the instrumentation. He put in the jazz piano, and crucially this crazy new electrified instrument with an amazing player called Bob Dunn, who was the steel player in his band, who did it in a very different way to what we currently would really see as steel guitar. It's very different, his approach, to what we kind of see now as that kind of country and western steel guitar, because he was a jazz trombonist who switched over to this crazy new instrument, and he was right in there bringing the almost bebop kind of crazy rhythm and tones and harmonies into steel guitar straight away in early 30s. So that would be some of the first electric instruments on record. So we kind of wanted to get that sound, and Anna, my partner in this band and life and dancing, she learned to play steel for that, because we didn't know anyone that did this, so she learned to play. So this was only a few years ago. And then, yeah, we wanted the right, the other key instrument, of course, is violin. And that often kind of takes the place of horns in Western swing, so it kind of does the same thing, but in a different tone. And we have a few fantastic violin players we play with, one of which is Billy Contreras, who he's from Nashville, and we met him a few years back when we were doing a session there, a recording session, and a few gigs with him. And he's a classically trained, award-winning Western swing specialist who's kind of mentored from an early age. He teaches at the university there in the orchestra in Nashville, but he was also mentored by one of the old original Western swing guys, so he knows all the songs, and yeah, he's fantastic. But also here in London we have Darius, he's a Royal Academy graduate, and as well as classical, he does West End shows. He's the fiddler on the roof in a West End show. see his face on buses driving around London. And yeah, we also have Basia, who's a Polish player, and she's really versatile. She's great. She does jazz, rock, and Balkan music, and anything anything you throw at her, she can do. And also another player, Piotr, another Pole. He's a jazz specialist, regular on the jazz scene here. And then of course we need piano, and we have a pianist called Joplin Parnell, who's really into kind of early jazz and ragtime and stride piano, so he really gives it that kind of sound. And then we have drums with Nicholas D. Ball. He's another regular on the jazz scene in London, and he's one of the only drummers I've ever known who, I've even pretty much heard of. There can't be many people that really specialise in that kind of 1910s early jazz sound, which is quite a different sound. It's not all sort of on the ride cymbal. It's very, very different, and he's really knowledgeable. He writes a blog, and he's, if you ever want to know anything about kind of early jazz drumming, he's your guy. A great bass player, give it that swing, a guy called Rob Rickenberg, who's a jazz and swing bass player. We also have a trumpet player called Harry Evans, because there was often in Western swing, even in the early days, they'd have some kind of horn player or a clarinet player. If not a whole section, they would at least have one wind player. He also plays with Alex Mendham, together with Nick. And yeah, and also we have an accordion player. He's a good friend of mine called Alex, and he's a fantastic accordion player, a snappy dresser, and often brings his wife along, who plays auto harp. So sometimes we have quite a big band.
Cool, and it's great to see. I mean, it sounds like you have a really solid team behind you, and it's interesting to see how many boundaries you've crossed and nationalities that are also involved in this style, mainly born in the US, but that has then expanded throughout the world, it sounds like. So really, really unique experience. And I know obviously the past year has been really tough for musicians and for artists in general, but nevertheless I know that you did not stop, and you probably saw this opportunity as a time to try something else, to continue practicing your music, even if performing is a lot more restricted. And you have a new album, if I understood correctly, called Swing It, that's coming out soon, in the coming weeks even. Could you tell us more about that? It's when? Sorry?
In the coming days. It's
in the coming days,
yeah,
awesome.
On the 5th, which is a couple of days from now. So yeah, we're really excited about this. Yeah, I mean, it's been strange not being out playing. I mean, I don't know if you knew, we in forming the band, you know, we wanted to create a space to play, and so we started a swing club in London, where we'd be the house band called the Collar Bar, which we've been doing for a couple of years, you know, just as the original Western swing bands did in dance halls in Texas. In particular, there's the Crystal Springs Dance Pavilion in Fort Worth, which was actually kind of a resort where they played, and we wanted to recreate some of that. It's kind of like the Savoy Ballroom of the South. We were a bit rougher, had their own gangsters going there, including Bonnie and Clyde, apparently. They were local to the area, and apparently they were regulars there. So yeah, we had our own club in London, minus the gangsters, just nice swing dancing people. But yeah, it's kind of strange, not, you know, because that just stopped obviously completely. And then when we got the invite to do from Angelo to do the Cap Capiventi Swing Around the World online event, we thought, oh no, this would be really cool. So we did that, and we were so happy with the way it turned out that we thought, well, why don't we make this an album and put it out as an album? That would be really cool. So yeah, that's how it came about. And so there's 13 swing dance tunes in a 30s Texas style. That's what's on the album. All highly danceable tunes from the 30s with hot solos, vocal duets, hot swinging rhythms. And we made sure they were right for Shag, Lindy and Balboa. Myself and Anna, we test the songs out. We dance to the songs, make sure that that's, you know, like the tempos are good and everything. And then, yeah, Owen, it's got a great cover done by Garcia. So she did a fantastic cover, so anyone who knows her as a dance person should also know she's a fantastic illustrator. And we know her from Shag Pile in London, so it was really cool to sort of bring everyone together. And she actually included Peter Ayers and Isla on the cover.
Really unique. Yeah, I didn't know she had this artistic side also to her.
Yeah, you should check out her work. It's really
Definitely.
cool. Yeah.
Definitely.
And so yeah, segueing, so aside from your career as a musician, you are a seasoned shag dancer. And could you talk a bit more about this growing community? I think it's a bit different than the typical Lindy Hop community, but it still is pretty prominent, especially around in this area. So how has that experience been? How do you see that community growing in the coming years, or changing? Or
Yeah, it's that was something we kind of got into, as you say. You know, we were dancing, you know, before we even started this band, and that was sort of a big part of forming it, was because of dance and, you know, liking the music we were dancing to and so on. But as for Shag specifically, yeah, it was Peter and Ila who got us into it, because Peter invited us to play at the Shag Pile social they have like once a month or so, and we were playing and just seeing how well collegiate shag just worked with Western swing, and we were just watching everyone dancing to it and just thinking, oh, this is everything together. It's not just the music we play now, it's the dance that really fits with it. So that encouraged us to start learning, and we found it to be like a really cool, like very inclusive, almost like a family, this international family of shag dancers, very supportive, yeah, very welcoming. And we made a lot of friends going to dance camps internationally. So, you know, we've been to LA Shag. Some good friends of ours, Crystal and Alex, run the Mind the Shag here, which is a great festival in London. Barcelona Shag, and we've played events at these things as well as so we've got the dancing and the playing, we're putting together. And we just found that, yeah, it is a growing community. I think more and more people are getting into it, and you're seeing more and more involvement in, I guess, in the wider community. So, you know, there's more you know, shag in the competitions and in the wider events. But as a little sort of subset, you know, we just found it full of really cool people.
Yeah, it's really lively, dynamic part of the swing dances. So yeah, definitely special. style. Yeah, really cool.
And it's centered around the kind of music which we particularly love as well, apart from Western swing, like early jazz and sort of ragtime and kind of trad jazz and so on. It seems to go really well to that, and I love the energy of it. But it can look really elegant as well as being kind of energetic. If you get it right, it's really smooth, as you know, as well as having this kind of, exactly.
Super. So, okay, in anticipation of returning to the dance floor or to our future pseudo Savoy ballrooms, how can people stay in touch with you? How can they get access to this new album coming out? What's the best way?
So the album, as I said, is coming out March the 5th, and that will be exclusively on Bandcamp. If you just head to AJ Wade Bandcamp or ajwade.com, that's my website, so if you can find any details for that and links to Bandcamp, so we'll be there.
Super excited to hear and to dance, even if it's in the apartment. At least some energy, positive energy.
We've been having fun doing all the online classes in our living room.
Yeah. It's not the same, but it's better than nothing. So
yeah, exactly. It's fine for now. I mean, it's been pretty cool being able to do classes with people you might not be able to do on a regular basis because maybe they're a long way off or something. So that's pretty cool. So it's not all bad.
Crossing time zones of all sorts. It shortens the distances ridiculously. So it's on the side. It is really cool. Awesome. Cool. All right. Well, thank you again for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
pleasure.
Of course. And so keep an eye out for the album on the 5th of March, and hopefully we'll be able to listen to the music live in the coming months.
Yes. Hopefully we're back out there playing at a Shag event before too long.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, AJ.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.